You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Tigers keep rolling in the transfer portal, and they've actually gone up to Blacksburg to get a couple of prospects. One we know for certain, the other we're waiting sort of like in any minute now. Figured let's take the opportunity to learn a little bit more about these guys. Andy Bitter from Tech Sideline, good enough to join us. He's on Twitter at AndyBitterVT if you want to give him a follow. Andy, we appreciate it, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you guys?
Doing really well. Portal season kind of keeps everybody busy. I'd imagine the same for you. Let's start with the one we know with Mansoor. What's the last name here? I've heard it pronounced like 4 different ways. Delane, Delaney, Delon. How do we say it?
Delane for the last name. The first name is Mansoor. He'll make sure that you get that right away. Mansoor Delane.
Mansoor. Okay, I like it very much. Mansoor. Mansoor Delane. Okay, so we've learned something there. That's already progress. So Mansoor Delane, how big of a deal that he left Tech in the portal?
Kind of a big deal. I was kind of gearing this up as his being his last year at Virginia Tech, one way or another. I thought he might go to the NFL. I've seen him, some projections to go to the NFL. I don't know if he had quite the season that he wanted to, sort of catapult him into that level and be in the consideration for those first couple rounds. So, I figured he'd get paid one way or another, and the transfer portal is probably the best route for that. A little surprised, his brother just signed at Ohio State. His younger brother's a 4-star safety, so I thought he might go the Ohio State route with this, but sounds like LSU's he likes it a little bit better.
Was this a thing where, so you said either way you felt this was going to be his last year at Tech. Walk me through his career, because I can look at stats, and there was obviously progress from year 1 to 2 to 3, and he's a very productive guy, but walk us through his career and how he sort of developed and advanced there in Blacksburg.
Yeah, he was a summer arrival in 2022, and had a little bit of an injury issue he was dealing with in August, but he didn't get on the field right away. But middle of the season, they started playing him and starting him in the secondary, and he looked very good. Freshman All-American on some outlets out there. The sort of versatile guy, can play safety, can play cornerback, and I think that's sort of his role in 2023 was shifting between the two of those things, because they had some injuries at safety, more so at quarterback this past season. I think he had 4 interceptions in the year. Some games that were not his greatest. I think you look at the Vanderbilt opener. They picked on him quite a bit. Did not have his best effort, but he bounced back the next week, played very well, and I think he had a really solid season. So I think it's a high potential guy that has shown flashes throughout his career, but still could put it together in an entire season.
Does he project more as a corner or a safety?
I would view him as a cornerback. I think he has the skills to play both, but if you have the coverage skills that he has, I think you want to take advantage of that most by playing him at cornerback.
So LSU has a desperate need at safety, and they're a little, I don't know, maybe a little full at cornerback. There'll be a lot of competition there. Do you get the sense that he's a guy that would leave Blacksburg, go to Baton Rouge to play safety, or is this a thing where he's going to play corner wherever he goes?
I think he's going there just for the opportunity. I don't think he probably has a single position in mind. I think he's got that skill set, but if he has to show it that he can play safety, it's something that he's done in the past. And, you make yourself versatile. You showed up for the NFL. They like those kind of versatile defensive backs that can play safety, corner, nickel, wherever you want them. So I don't necessarily view it as a bad thing if they switch positions, but, he has the capabilities to play more than one spot.
Andy Bitter is with us. Tech Sideline covers Virginia Tech on Twitter at AndyBitterVT. I want to ask about Braelin Moore as well. I think maybe the big surprise here with Braelin Moore is that there still isn't anything official from Braelin Moore when everybody seems to be projecting him to LSU. Any idea what's going on there?
Not really. I'm sure he's a guy that Virginia Tech would like to keep. They currently don't have an offensive line coach, though, and I don't think they can match the sort of NIL funds that he might get in an open market like that. I mean, these offensive linemen, they get out there, it's sort of a feeding frenzy. You've seen it the last couple of years where, even average prospects, tons of schools are going after those guys because everybody needs an offensive lineman. So I'm not really sure what the holdup would be. I saw that, I think it was last week, where people started projecting him to LSU. But I would imagine he has quite a bit of interest out there. As a 2-year starter, has played guard and center before, and the Hokies were lining him up to be their starting center for another year in 2025, and he decided to go into the portal.
Yeah, walk us through that movement on the offensive line, why he played both sort of throughout his career trajectory there.
Yeah, he started up as a guard, and his brother Caden, who was a year older, was actually playing center. And they moved Caden to guard this year. They moved Braelin over to center, and I think it was, with the idea in mind that they were going to get 2 years out of him at center. You like to have that established and have a guy there that's returning for the following season. Now, maybe that was foolish in the portal era, that you think you would get 2 years out of a guy when could be in demand if he goes out there as a transfer. But I think that was the plan with it. And they were shifting guys around on their offensive line to try to find the best five, and that's sort of where they ended up with Braelin as a center. And he played pretty well. And I don't think he was all ACC or all conference or anything like that, but he played pretty well. And I think he turned in a pretty good season.
LSU's center position was really a challenge this year. They desperately need help there, and they need experience. So it's obviously what they're going after here. Where would you say is maybe the strength or weakness in Braelin Moore's game as a center?
I think he's a pretty strong guy, pretty stout guy as a center. You look at his size. I mean, he's got guard size playing the center position. I don't really feel like I remember too many snapping issues this past year. That's always something that's new for a guy that's never played the position before. Is, how does he handle that responsibility on top of everything else? I am by no means an offensive line expert.
Sure.
So I don't know if I can sit here and tell you his strengths and weaknesses per se, but I mean, he was a real solid player for them, and somebody who's going to be very missed on the interior of that line, just as somebody who made all the calls and did everything for an entire season like that.
Andy, before you go, just a thought overall on Tech and a 6-6 season there, and seeing guys like this jump in the portal. I mean, everybody loses guys in the portal now. That goes without saying, but just sort of the state of where Tech is in this new world with NIL and portal.
Yeah, I think it's sort of an unsound footing. I mean, you saw their basketball program here. I don't know if you're familiar with their basketball program, but it got gutted last year. Everybody transferred after the season, and I think people were relating that to maybe some NIL promises that were not kept or payments that were not completely made. And you see all these players leaving Virginia Tech right now, and it might be a case where people have a pretty big war chest that they have to use before this whole house settlement comes down, and that led to a whole influx of money into the whole system. But I think it's tough for schools like Virginia Tech to keep up with some of these SEC schools. I mean, there have been 5 or 6 transfers so far from Virginia Tech that have gone to SEC schools. 2 to LSU, 1 to Auburn, 2 to Vanderbilt, and 1 to Missouri now. So I think you can see kind of where the money is flowing in college athletics, and it's not necessarily these mid to bottom teams in the ACC. So I think it's going to be a challenge. I think that's why a school like Virginia Tech really hopes this house settlement goes through and this revenue sharing piece of it, that maybe a little bit more of a level playing field where NIL isn't so much pay for play like it's become. Right. So I think that's the hope. I don't know if they get to that point though.
Boy, it'll be fascinating too, Andy. Even with the house settlement. Everyone is hoping that that's what happens, but I get that feeling, man. If you got wealthy people trying to buy an advantage, they'll find a way to do it somehow. It was collectives
typically,
in this iteration.
Yeah.
I mean, collectives in this iteration, what would it be after the house settlement? I don't know, but it'll continue to unfold. Andy Bitter from Tech Sideline at Andy Bitter VT. If you want to give him a follow, give us some insight there on Mansoor Delane and Braelin Moore. We appreciate it, man. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, anytime.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.